Okay. Not the first time someone's confused my name with Gemini, and I have a rift with Google about that. Anyways, thanks everyone. Now's your time to walk away if this is not of interest to you. But the topic for today is logs, lies, and language models, adding observability for prompts in GenAI. It was an awesome intro, so a lot of it is already covered. I'm a principal data scientist and an AI/ML team lead at Red Hat. Usually, each time I walk in a room and make that introduction, folks ask me what Red Hat is. This is the first time I don't have to, because I saw someone use OpenShift console and I felt at home. I wasn't snooping, I promise. So it's a familiar crowd for Red Hat, so I'm happy about that. Like the intro, I've worked on a variety of ML use cases along the years. Now I started working on GenAI projects because AI is all the rage. And increasingly, as I've worked on GenAI, I've realized that prompts are not static strings. So each time you deploy something in production, it's bound to break and you don't understand how that happens. And that's primarily because you've not added observability for prompts. So that's what inspired me to submit the talk for today. And I'm a proud blue devil and a yellow jacket. So anyone in the room? No? Let's go. One or two hands. Okay. So it's no secret. Even the biggest names in AI have had hallucinations strike, and those failures have been very noticeable. The most popular examples are Google Bard very confidently saying James Webb was the first telescope to take a photo of a planet outside our solar system. Wasn't factually correct, but that happened. OpenAI speech-to-text translation models were also adding a phrase or two which was not a part of their original audio recordings. That's another example of hallucination. And finally, Microsoft released an AI agent to create summaries for different travel destinations and mentioned a food bank in Ottawa as a travel destination. Again, hallucination, hopefully. All of that to say, if this happened to people who are trailblazing in the space of AI, there's a decent chance it will happen to us. And I have been a victim of it sometimes. Think of a scenario where you're working on a text-to-SQL chatbot. The user goes in, asks a natural language-based question, and the chatbot in the backend translates that into a SQL query that runs against a database. And you ask the LLM to summarize the insights and possibly also produce a visual or two. This seems okay and doable, but in the back end, it's interpreted as a series of linked prompts, one after the other. And if anyone breaks, the sequence breaks, and that's where you see an error in production. So consider a scenario where an analyst goes to this bot and asks the question, hey, can you generate a SQL query to get last month's sales by region? The LLM is perfect. Does that, writes a SQL that actually works and spits something like this: select region, sum sales from orders in this date range, perfectly fine, runs against the database, gives you the data frame as well. The second task is to now summarize the findings in plain English and focus on the top 3 regions based on sales. This is where you would expect something like you see in the first line. The top 3 regions by sale were North, East, West, and then South trailed by 10%. That's what you want. Instead, this output you get is a bit different. It says Central led the sales with 50%, followed by North and then East. On the surface, it's okay, right? Pretty decent, you get percentages, but that's hallucination because Central is not even a region and it makes it up. That's one of the classic cases that I have been a victim of. The LLM just goes rogue each time. The second scenario could be it's a bit too snazzy for your business use case. It says North crushed it, East was average, West fell behind. Factually correct, but not exactly the summary you want to give to your CFO now, is it? So that's an example of schema violation. The output is not in the format you expect it to be. And that's also an issue because the next task in the sequence is you asking the LLM to visualize the findings. If it returns just a simple English statement, it can't do that. It doesn't have numbers to visualize for you. Or if it makes up a region and assigns numbers to it, again, it can't visualize for you. So that breaks the third and the final prompt in the sequence. and the CFO calls you and says, hey, what's up? I was using your bot in a demo and it didn't work right, and not naming names, someone missed it. So that happened to me. Learned the lesson. And that can happen to you as well. Without observability, if you ship something in production, there's a decent chance it will break. And the only option you have is to sit and tell yourself, this is fine, it's okay, it will pass, I'll survive this. The reason why this happens is prompts work differently from code. They break, but they do that silently. You don't get any stack traces, you don't get any error messages or crash messages, none of that. It will just drift, and you'll realize that very, very late in the process. So that is what makes prompts hard to trust, hard to debug. But why does that happen? It happens because prompts are a very important part of the GenAI workflow, but they're a very overlooked layer of decision making. We're very used to looking at prompts as static strings. We don't expect them to change. But when you look at them closely, you'll realize they have a lot of moving parts. That's a complex runtime logic. Prompts are put together using a template, variables, and context. Everything gets defined at runtime. So it just comes together the minute someone asks a question. You need to know what it was that was fed to the LLM. You can't if you don't observe it. Prompts these days are getting even more complicated. I'm sure you must have heard of MCP, Model Context Protocols, or multi-agent workflows, where often the instructions passed are a sequence of tasks. Often they require multiple tool calling. And sometimes we also add reinforcement learning through human feedback, meaning any user feedback is also pushed back to the LLM and added as a part of prompt. This is just even more layers of complexity that gets added. So again, an even more pressing need for observability. And what happens if we just overlook it? We're just signing up for failure. We're unable to understand how a decision was made. We do not know how well our system is performing, and we cannot improve over time because we're not measuring it in the first place. So some might say, hey, I added monitoring to my workflow and I'm covered. I don't have to worry about observability, right? To that I say, don't make that mistake. I made it and I learned it the hard way. Monitoring is not observability. Monitoring is just detection, failure detection. You'll get alerted. You create a static set of metrics, you predefined metrics. You set a threshold. Once that threshold is crossed, you get an alert. Once that alert comes, that's the end of the story. That's it. No one wants to say this error won't happen again because you're not really going in the system to fix it and proactively address it because you didn't do a root cause analysis of this. Instead, observability will help you understand what the problem is and implement an improvement over it over time because you'll be measuring as well as tracking what you've done, the performance over time. And you do that through the classic 3 pillars of observability: logs, metrics, and traces. And this will help you much more than monitoring could. So that's why I chose observability for my topic today. And that means we need to understand it a bit more. Like I said, a traditional GenAI setup is often a 4-step process. I'm oversimplifying, but just go with the flow. User inputs a prompt. The prompt goes to a model. The model produces an output. Fair enough. Traditional observability, usually centered around the model. Our metrics will be interested in resource usage, latency of the API. Our logs would be around the errors that were related to pinging the LLM. Our traces would be about microservice calls. I'm saying this is not wrong. I'm saying this is not enough. You just extend the same playbook, but you add new targets to it now. You build the same metrics for prompts. You add new logs, again, for prompts, and you build new traces for prompts. All of this is the same setup. It's just a handful of new things you're adding to your workflow. Like I opened with it previously, it's the same 3 pillars that we're all used to seeing, right? Metrics, logs, traces. There's nothing different that we're doing here. We're just tackling it one at a time. What do metrics fundamentally help us do? They help us quantify the quality of our output. By adding metrics for our prompts, we will be able to measure and track our output quality. And when I say add metrics, this is what I have in mind for my application. It doesn't mean it applies to yours. But what I thought of doing was add hallucination rate as a metric, schema violations, JSON parse failures, average latency, drift score, and user satisfaction. Again, this worked for me, doesn't mean it works for you. At the very least, add these 3 metrics. Think about hallucination rate. It's in the name. It's the definition itself. It's counting the number of scenarios when the LLM makes things up. For example, a user goes in and asks, what was my Q3 revenue? The LLM, the data set doesn't even have Q3 revenue, yet you get a response 24.5 million. Count that as one instance of hallucination. Second, schema violations. Remember the sequence of steps we started the talk with? That is where schema violation came in. That's exactly what you do. You track the number of times your expected output format wasn't exactly what you wanted. And you keep a track of that. For example, here, the expected JSON looked something like that. Instead, I got a plain English sentence. That's not exactly what I wanted and can't really work with my application. I count that as a schema violation. And finally, performance drift. We all know that. We're used to measuring it. You measure accuracy across different versions of your application and across time as you've evolved your application, right? So once you do that in the metric, which is teeny tiny right corner of the window, it basically is showing a dip around week 3. Suppose I introduced a feature, my accuracy dropped around week 3, I'll see an increase in drift. That's pretty much how you're supposed to build it and get an alert about it. All of this is just tied to prompts. It works. These are existing observability metrics. You're just extending that to work with prompts. Finally, second, logs. We're used to seeing logs for models. We're just adding a bit more data points to capture. This is the raw execution data that we're capturing in our application. So we're noting down things such as prompt template, because a lot of Gen AI will be about just prompt engineering. Like, no matter how complicated you make the backend, but it's also about how well you give instructions to the LLM, which boils down to the prompt template. You need to be very, very methodical about capturing what exactly went in at what point in time, and that needs to be logged. In addition to that, you need to understand what variables were injected into the template at what point. So that's where template variables comes in. Models, of course, we all capture, and then the response. Like, what exactly was the answer I got when someone said this was a hallucination or someone said my application broke? Finally, traces. Logs are good about one point in the journey, but traces will help you understand what exactly happened along each step of the way before you arrived at that log, because that understanding is very important for a root cause analysis. So the same setup that I showed you guys previously, this is now from the lens of a RAG chatbot, a retrieval augmented generation chatbot. It's a bit different because there's an extra step of retrieval in the middle. Same setup, user goes there, asks a question, retrieval happens, goes to the model, and an output is generated. Imagine working with a sales bot where the user goes and asks a question, why is my order delayed? The chatbot comes back and says, ideally, your order is delayed because of inventory shortage and the expected date is now September 21st. In the backend, there is a sequence of steps that had to happen for you to get that answer in the front end. You have to now capture all of that so that you have the entire path at your disposal should there be an event of hallucination. You start with capturing the first span of the process, prompt template. What exactly was this template that I used, and what variables did I inject into it at runtime? Retrieval. What were the documents that were used to provide context to the LLM to answer this question? In this scenario, we went back to the corpus of documents, the knowledge base, and fetched 2 documents. The first document mentioned why the order 1234 was delayed, and the second document told you what exactly is the new anticipated delivery date. You combine the context from these 2 documents and feed that to the model. Of course, these are the usual metrics we're used to seeing for a model: the name, the temperature, the p-value. Once all of that is done, you're good. You just ship the model and you capture the output. And now that we've covered all 3 pillars of observability, you would think that's it. But that's where I suggest that's not the end of the process for you, because these 3 pillars will help you debug when the problem arises. But what if you want to be a bit more proactive than that? If you want to just get ahead of the whole problem in the first place, that's where the CI/CD aspect comes in. Imagine adding a couple of validation gates right when you ship prompt, and those checks happening similar to how you're used to doing unit testing. Just do those tests on the prompt. Stress test your prompt the minute you make a commit. And if that fails, don't even ship it. You don't have to worry about these 3 pillars if you just address the problem before it starts. So a typical CI/CD pipeline when working with GenAI would look something like this. I commit a prompt, it builds a package, it gets deployed. What I'm suggesting is adding 3, I added 3, you can add, sky's the limit. You add 3 different validation gates. If any one fails, that's it, don't ship it. This is your sign, an error is bound to happen. In this scenario, the first validation gate is about a prompt validation test. It's the same metrics that we covered previously. Hallucination detection, schema violation, JSON parse issues. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're just applying the same metrics here to create a gate, to check if any of our, for a ground truth set of question and answers, are we incurring any cases of hallucinations or schema violations? If that happens, this is your failure gate for that. Gate 2 is regression testing and drift checking. How is this instance of prompt performing compared to the last time I made a change? If I'm performing worse than I did the last time, I don't think I should ship it in the first place, even though I'm not having hallucinations or schema violations. But I am just not on par with the last quality results I generated. That's your answer. Don't ship it. Fail the entire pipeline. And finally, gate 3 is to capture those edge cases. Like I opened the talk with, right, there are a lot of edge cases that users discover when these big names deploy their applications. You're supposed to come up with a list of your own. It's hard. I have also created a list. I know it's not exhaustive enough, but you can try. And it's even more important in cases where you're dealing with financial data, customer relations. You have to worry about compliance. You have to worry about PII, personal info. You really have to test your chatbot thoroughly before it goes into production. And that is where the broader QA comes up. This is where your creativity shines, honestly. There's no playbook for that. You just have to build a test set together. And of course, there's always human spot checking. If you're just not getting good vibes from it, just pull the plug, don't ship it. That's the very last step of the process. And mostly it is manual, but you really, really need that. Once you've done all of that, you might think, okay, she just gave us a list of a lot of things to work, but I'm pretty sure LLMOps do that. And we actually have Grafana, so I may or may not have excluded them from the list of tools I'm going to talk about, but that was intentional. The whole reason is I know these guys know way more about this than I do, but the 4 tools that I've used in my experience are up on the board. There's a vast set of tools that you have at your disposal which address LLMOps. You get to decide which tool you want to go with based on what is your area of interest. Is it metrics? Is it logs? Is it tracing? You decide what is the area you want to address on. Pick a tool which has that as its strength. And then you write the tests for the rest, right? Like if creating metrics is easy for you, do that. Validation gates easy enough, do that. But these are the 4 that I picked because I was exploring them for my projects. LangFuse, for example, is pretty solid about tracing and logging, but not so much about validation, and provides basic drift detection and runtime monitoring. TrueLens is pretty basic about tracing and logging, but is very solid about automated evals. Again, no support for drift detection and runtime monitoring. Deep eval is also more or less in line with TrueLens. It's very solid with automated regression testing. And Phoenix kind of does a little bit of everything, but is very good about runtime monitoring and drift detection. This is not set in stone. This is based out of my experience, so I shared what I know. What I'm trying to say is there's a decent chance you'll pick a tool and it won't hit all the boxes for you. You have to decide what is good enough for you and then put in efforts to cover the rest. Once you do that, you will be in a good position to address any hallucinations that your application might face. The key takeaways of this talk are pretty much just get on top of it. Add prompts as a part of your observability. Make sure you don't ship prompts and hope for vibes. No more ad hoc checking, no more tweaks without loggings. Just make sure that you observe prompts like a pro. Use whatever is of interest to you. And once you do that, you'll be successful because your prompts won't fail silently when you observe loudly. And that's my time for today. Any questions?
Do you use OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Claude API, or do you serve your local stuff?
We're Red Hat. We use IBM Granite.
IBM's?
Yeah, we use IBM models for our applications.
Okay.
As part of your observability, have you looked at using evaluations and seeing how they can help with more traceability, specifically LLM responses?
I have, but with traceability, my idea was to also measure it across time and across versions. So my evals were just for a specific, like at this version or this template that I'm testing, but it wasn't giving me how far have I come in my journey from the last time I deployed something. So that prompted me to also worry about the timeline aspect of changes. So point-in-time evals for sure I've done.
How do you actually do the detection of the hallucinations? Because it seems like you're trying to prove a negative there. You've got a good answer, but you're getting a not good answer back.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
Very helpful. Thank you very much.
It's very hard. You try to work with subject matter experts first for the chatbot to ask them what are the wildest questions you have in mind and the trickiest ways you would want to ask those to the LLM. And you build a template that you think is solid enough. And then you test it. There's just, in my experience, there hasn't been one developer I've come across who's told me this is the package that will give you a hallucination-proof solution, or there is a way to bypass the manual work that's put in to create prompts in the first place. But it's always an iterative process. So it's very hard, but it's very iterative as well.
Thanks. Could you explain a little bit about what you're actually doing with the prompts? Like, so it sounds like the prompts are part of your CI/CD pipeline, and maybe I'm just ignorant of my Gen AI here, but how are those prompts being used in your application, or like in what way are they being used?
Prompts are your way of instructing the LLM to do something. So your instructions are basically that prompt template, because each LLM that gets shipped in the market is basically just trained on a general English corpus. So it's going to be it's a misnomer, but fine-tuned to what exact task you want to achieve. And that's where prompts come in, because you're giving the LLM the context, like, for example, why was my order delayed? It doesn't know anything about your system. These OpenAI models or any other models won't know anything about your system, your company, your business rules. So all of that comes as a part of prompts. In addition to that, instructions on, I want you to answer my question using XYZ steps. So that also is a part of your template. So I think it's like a catch-all bucket of making LLMs work, basically.